I never thought I'd tell you this, but here I am, with the courage to confess the most secret, forbidden, and complicated night of my life. That day, the day everything changed. I thought it would just be about not spending my 64th birthday alone. But there was so much more behind Edward's desire not to leave me alone. The pull between us, those forbidden feelings, and everything we'd suppressed for years could never truly be ignored. And that day was when all of it came to a head. Let me tell you everything from the beginning. Edward was Jonathan's stepson. Now, at 28, he's confident, determined, and someone who could captivate me at first glance. In the year Jonathan passed away, he used to visit often, sometimes staying with me for days. But 2 years ago, he disappeared without a word. During his absence, the moments we shared stayed locked in the deepest corners of my mind. I tried to forget about him, to push those memories away. But I couldn't. And then that day came. He appeared at my door. He said he needed to look for some documents in the garage, but I knew immediately that he hadn't come just for that. Edward's gaze was the same as before, the kind that stirred up all the emotions I had buried deep within myself, leaving me utterly unprepared. When he smiled at me, holding some papers in his hand, I realized there was more to this visit. And I was right. The gramophone he'd placed in the garage, the one I'd always wanted even when Jonathan was alive, was sitting there with my favorite record on it. The documents were just an excuse. This was all about me. The moment I saw that gramophone, my heart felt like it would burst out of my chest. Later, Edward left without saying much. But that evening, he came back with a cake in his hand. That familiar smile was still there, but now it held something deeper. "I didn't want you to spend your 64th birthday alone, Bella," he said. And I realized then that this was about so much more than a birthday celebration. Edward was about to give me a night I could have never imagined. That night everything changed. And now I'll tell you every detail. When I opened the door and saw Edward standing there, I was unprepared for what I saw. This wasn't just a casual visit. I could feel it instantly. He was holding a delicate cake and dressed in a sharp suit. The smile on his face was different, more meaningful, more intense. Edward, now 28, carried a maturity that blended with the energy of his youth, making him impossibly captivating. "Happy birthday, Bella," he said, his voice warm enough to fill the entire doorway. His words both surprised me and stirred something indescribable in my chest. He had remembered my birthday. For the first time, someone had come to celebrate with such care. "I didn't want you to turn 64 alone," he added, his enchanting smile growing. "Tonight should be special. If this story resonates with you, join my channel, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear more. Trust me, this will be one of the most thrilling stories you ever heard." I wanted to say something, but the words caught in my throat. Edward placed the cake on the coffee table and stepped closer to me. "But Bella," he said, his eyes scanning me gently, "tonight could be so much more special. Let's celebrate it properly, in a way you deserve. Go put on a nice dress, and let's make this a night to remember." First I thought about refusing, but his gentle yet insistent gaze made it impossible. I nodded slightly and walked upstairs. As I climbed the stairs, a strange excitement coursed through me. When I opened my wardrobe, my eyes caught the black dress I hadn't worn in years. I ran my fingers over the fabric and walked over to the mirror. Before putting on the dress, I slipped off my t-shirt, standing bare before my reflection. My skin was still firm and youthful. I traced my waist with my hands, leaned slightly forward, and studied my shoulders. "I'm truly captivating," I murmured to myself. I was 64 years old, but it seemed like I had somehow defied the passage of time. Smiling to myself, I slid the dress on, feeling genuinely special in that moment. As I descended the stairs, a familiar melody floated from the living room, reaching my ears. It was my favorite song. My steps slowed and my heart began to race. How did Edward know? I had never mentioned it to him. Confused but intrigued, I made my way toward the living room. Edward had set up the gramophone in the middle of the room and had carefully chosen the record to play. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. The admiration on his face spoke volumes, even though he didn't say a word. "How did you know?" I asked, unable to hide my surprise. Edward smiled softly, his gaze unwavering. "I listened to you, Bella," he said. "You probably thought you were the one always listening to me. But in truth, I was listening to you. Every detail you mentioned, every passion you shared. I remembered it all." His words filled me with warmth. It had been so long since I felt truly seen, truly heard. Edward stepped closer, extending his hand toward me. "Let tonight be all about you, Bella. I'm here to make you feel special." As the melody filled the room, I couldn't deny the depth and determination I saw in his eyes. We sat down and started talking. But this wasn't an ordinary conversation. It was laced with all the feelings and emotions we had suppressed for so long. The pull between us grew stronger with every passing second. Edward's voice broke through the air, deep and full of emotion. "Do you know why I didn't come back before, Bella?" His question caught me off guard, and my eyes locked onto his emerald gaze, trying to decipher where this was going. He paused for a moment, as if carefully selecting his words. "I've always been drawn to you," he finally admitted. His voice soft yet powerful enough to fill the room. "I saw the desire, the passion, the excitement inside you. I always saw it. But what I felt scared me, Bella. I knew I couldn't be around you. My body wanted to run to you, but my mind kept telling me it was wrong." His words sent a wave of warmth through me, but also a swirl of confusion. My heart began pounding wildly, but I knew I had to keep myself composed. Taking a steady breath, I looked at him. "Edward, you shouldn't say this," I replied, though the tremor in my voice betrayed my emotions. "I know I shouldn't," he said, lowering his head slightly. But then he raised his eyes to meet mine again, and the intensity in his gaze rooted me in place. "But I can't hold it in anymore, Bella. For 2 years, I haven't been able to get you out of my mind. Your eyes, your smile. Everything about you has haunted me. Wherever I went, I saw you. My heart wouldn't let me forget." The honesty and his confession both startled and deeply excited me. My hands were clasped tightly in my lap, and I realized they were trembling. "Edward, this isn't right," I said, though I couldn't deny the magnetic pull I felt toward him, the connection between us. "It's not right." Edward leaned slightly closer, bending his knees where he sat, tilting toward me. His eyes were filled with a deep determination. "Right or wrong," he said, his voice low but resolute. "I can't deny what I feel. And neither can you, Bella. Your eyes tell me everything. You know this. The connection between us is real." For a moment I was silent because he was right. This pull between us had always been there, a bond one had tried to ignore for years. Feelings I didn't want to acknowledge, but that had grown stronger, pulling me in more and more. Now, in his gaze and his words, it all echoed back at me. "Thank you for not leaving me alone that day," I finally said, my voice tight with emotion. "But Edward, this is dangerous. If we go further, neither of us will be able to turn back." Edward slowly reached out, placing his fingers over mine. His touch shattered every logical barrier I had built. "I don't want to turn back, Bella," he said. "I just want to live this moment with you, to show you how I feel, to tell you how special you are to me." Tears welled up in my eyes, but these feelings didn't break me. They freed something deep inside. His words were an admission of a passion he had kept locked away for too long. "When I look at you," he continued, his voice soft yet intense, "I don't just see beauty. I see strength, passion, and a joy for life. You think you're 64, but to me, you've always been the youngest, most captivating woman. And those feelings, they'll never change." His words broke through the last of my resistance. I took a deep breath and looked at him. "Edward," I said, my voice trembling but leaning toward him, "you see me in a way I haven't felt in years. And I can't deny that." The silence that followed was heavy, yet it said everything. We just looked at each other, And in that quiet, every unspoken truth was revealed. The forbidden pull between us had become undeniable, irreversible. When Edward's lips finally met mine, every suppressed feeling erupted. The emotion I had came rushing to the surface. His kiss was filled with a passion that forced me to confront all the feelings I had hidden for years. But the intensity of it also scared me. The logical part of me was still fighting, telling me I shouldn't give in. Suddenly, I pulled away, taking a deep breath. "Edward," I whispered, my voice trembling. I wasn't even sure what I wanted to say. Lost in his gaze, I felt my control slipping. My heart pounded as I stepped back, wanting to put space between us. Without another word, I hurried toward my bedroom. When I shut the door behind me, I turned to face the mirror. My cheeks were flushed, my eyes brimming with excitement and confusion. My hands were still trembling slightly. "What am I doing?" I whispered to myself. But deep down, there was a voice that couldn't be silenced, a voice driven by an overwhelming desire. I looked at the mirror more closely, studying the faint lines on my face, the hints of age. But then my eyes trailed down to my still firm, youthful body. "I still have it," I murmured, a small, conflicted smile forming on my lips. Yet somehow, that realization only made things more complicated. Just then I heard the soft creak of the door. I turned around and saw Edward's determined gaze as he stepped inside. He didn't take his eyes off me as he closed the door behind him and moved closer. "Bella," he said, his voice low but resolute, "I can't let you run away." I looked at him, but I couldn't say anything. Edward closed the distance between us, and once again, his lips pressed against mine. This kiss deepened everything, pulling me further into a place I had no control over. My defenses, one by one, were crumbling. I couldn't hold myself back any longer. My hands instinctively reached for his shoulders. Edward wrapped his arms around my waist, pulling me even closer. His warmth enveloped my entire body, and my breathing quickened. His kisses trailed from my lips to my neck and then down to my shoulders. My body, without hesitation, responded to his every touch. Yet the intensity of this forbidden desire completely consumed me. I stepped back slightly, not to run but to catch my breath. Slowly, I reached for the straps of my dress, sliding them off my shoulders. The fabric silently fell to the floor, pooling at my feet. I glanced briefly at my reflection in the mirror and felt a surge of courage rise within me. "Edward," I whispered, my voice barely audible, "I am surrendering to you." Those words lit something in his eyes, a fire that was impossible to ignore. Edward began unbuttoning his shirt, his fingers moving quickly, almost impatiently. When he shrugged it off, revealing his strong, athletic body, my heart raced even faster. As I watched him take a step closer, every part of me gravitated toward him. Edward placed his hands on my waist again, guiding me gently toward the bed. When I lay down, he joined me. His presence filled every space around me. His kisses started at my neck, moving down to my shoulders, further exploring every part of me. With every touch, he awakened emotions and passions that had been buried deep inside me for years. This moment was the beginning of a night I never could have imagined. And I knew without a doubt that nothing would ever be the same again. Everything was happening so fast that my heart felt like it might burst out of my chest. I looked at Edward, unable to hide the confusion and depth of my desire. "I never could have dreamed of this," I said, breathless. "But right now, more than anything, I want this. I am so excited and full of desire." Edward tilted his head slightly, a soft but determined smile spreading across his lips. "Bella," he said, his voice calm yet so deeply captivating it held me in place. "We both always wanted this, but every time we ran from it. Not tonight. Tonight, we're not running anywhere." At that moment, Edward's words shattered the last of my defenses. I no longer cared where this night would take us. I was ready to lose myself in the moment. Something powerful surged through me, so immense, so all-consuming, that it stole the breath from my lungs. My body responded instinctively. I squeezed the sheet with one hand, my knuckles going white, while the other gripped the edge of the bedside table like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. The wave of sensation was unlike anything I'd ever known. Raw, deep, electric. My eyes clenched shut as I surrendered to it completely, every nerve ending alive, every thought reduced to pure, blinding feeling. For what felt like minutes, 2, maybe 3, I stayed still, letting the intensity wash over me. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. Could only feel. Time lost meaning in that moment, and all I could do was breathe through the aftershocks, trembling with a mix of disbelief and wonder at what had just happened inside me. When I finally opened my eyes, I stared up at the ceiling, trying to regain my bearings. That's when I saw Edward. He was leaning over me, his eyes searching mine with an expression I'll never forget, equal parts tenderness and awe. His hair was tousled in the most endearing way, and a soft sheen of sweat glistened on his forehead, catching the light. It made him look almost angelic, like something out of a dream I never wanted to wake from. And just as I was silently thinking, "This is perfect," Edward reached out without a word and gently placed his hand over mine where it rested on the bed. That simple gesture undid me all over again. Everything about the moment felt unreal, like I had stepped into a dream where every detail was both surreal and painfully vivid. I turned my head, and when I glanced at the mirror across the room, I saw our reflection. Both of us still breathless, still tangled in that fragile aftermath of something beautiful and wild. The sight triggered another wave inside me. My legs tightened involuntarily, my body trembling with such a forceful response that, for a second, I thought I might lose consciousness. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual, a deep, consuming connection that reached into the most hidden parts of me. This was a kind of desire I had never felt before, and certainly never imagined I was capable of. Scared me, thrilled me. It left me speechless. And in that suspended moment I realized, I was no longer just surprised by him. I was surprised by myself. And then there was Edward, standing before me like something out of a dream. He was breathtaking in a way that words could barely capture. The soft lighting wrapped around him, casting golden shadows across his features. His cheeks were flushed with color, his hair slightly tousled, and there was a glow about him, something almost otherworldly. I blinked, as if trying to convince myself he was real, not just a figment of my imagination born from longing. He looked at me with such intensity, such raw affection, that my breath caught in my throat. Compliments tumbled from his lips like a gentle cascade, each one more tender and sincere than the last. They weren't the kind of words meant to flatter. They were the kind that reached deep into my soul and made me feel seen, adored. My voice trembled, thick with emotion, as I finally found the words to speak. "Edward, you're incredible. Truly. I've never felt anything like this before." My heart pounded as I looked into his eyes, and I meant every word. I never want this night to end. Something shifted in him then. I saw it in his expression, the way his eyes deepened, the flicker of hunger and wonder mixed into one. His lips parted slightly, and he leaned in just a little closer, like he was hanging on to my every word. The excitement in his gaze grew even more intense, more vibrant. Without thinking, I lifted my hand and placed it gently on his chest. Through the fabric of his shirt, I could feel the frantic rhythm of his heartbeat. It mirrored my own, erratic, unsteady, and so very alive. There was something sacred about that small gesture, like my touch had anchored both of us in that perfect moment. "I've always wanted you," I said, the words barely more than a whisper. They slipped from my lips before I even realized I was saying them. But once they were out, they felt like the truest thing I'd ever said. I blinked, the weight of my confession settling in my chest. I still can't believe this is happening. Overwhelmed by everything. His presence, his warmth, the closeness between us. I closed my eyes again. And when I did, it was as if a floodgate opened. A deep, rolling heat spread through me like a fire igniting from within. It started in my chest and expanded outward, consuming every inch of my body with a sensation that was as comforting as it was intense. I felt weightless and grounded all at once, caught in a moment that felt suspended in time. This wasn't just desire. It was something deeper. Something that whispered of connection, of longing finally met, of emotions long held at bay now spilling freely into the open. And in the stillness that followed, in the glow between heartbeats, I knew one thing for certain. I would remember this night forever. Edward's breath came in short, uneven bursts as he collapsed beside me, his chest rising and falling with the rhythm of what had just passed between us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was full, alive with the echoes of everything we'd just shared. I could feel the heat of his body lingering next to mine, the faint brush of his arm against my skin like a grounding tether in the midst of something that still felt dreamlike. Then, slowly, Edward sat up, running a hand through his tousled hair. There was a shift in his expression, something calm but purposeful. His gaze flicked to the nightstand where his phone rested. He reached for it with steady hands and unlocked the screen with a few practiced taps, then turned toward me, his eyes shining with something deeper than just passion. "Bella," he said softly, but with unmistakable conviction, "I want to show you something." Curious, I propped myself up slightly on one elbow, watching as he turned the phone to face me. And the moment my eyes landed on the screen, I froze. There, glowing beneath the dim light of the room, was a picture of a small, enchanting cottage nestled beside a serene lake. A narrow wooden path led down to the water's edge, surrounded by tall trees and wildflowers that danced in the breeze. The cottage itself looked like something out of a storybook, cozy, warm, secluded, place untouched by chaos, place to breathe. It was exactly the kind of place I'd always dreamed of, a place where time slowed down and the world faded away. My lips parted, but no words came. Edward leaned closer, his voice low but filled with emotion. "I want to take you there," he said, the intensity in his tone grounding me. "Far away from everything and everyone. Just us. No noise. No distractions. Just this house, the lake, and you, waking up beside me every morning." I stared at him, still trying to catch my breath, as he continued. "Tomorrow morning, I want us to go see it together," he said, his gaze not wavering. "And when we're there, I'll ask you to wear something I've picked out just for you. Because tonight, Bella, I saw you fully. I saw the woman I've carried in my heart, the one I've imagined 1,000 times but never truly believed I'd meet." He paused, and I saw the emotion well in his eyes, barely held back. "That woman is you," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "It's always been you. Even before I knew it, it was you." His confession struck something deep inside me, like a spark catching dry wood. My heart stuttered in my chest, thudding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I could only look at him, this man who had just turned a night of passion into something infinitely more meaningful. I felt overwhelmed, not just by the sincerity of his words, but by the clarity of it all. As if, somehow, everything in my life had been leading to this moment. To him. To us. And though I couldn't yet form a response, I knew. Deep in my bones, I knew. This wasn't just the beginning of something. It was the answer to everything I hadn't dared to hope for. This wasn't just a fleeting moment or a story destined to fade with the sunrise. No, this was something more. This was a doorway, quietly swinging open, leading into a world neither of us had fully imagined but had always longed for deep down. A world built on vulnerability, trust, and a kind of connection that doesn't come around often. Maybe once in a lifetime if you're lucky. And even though I couldn't yet see all that waited beyond that door, all the laughter, the tears, the quiet mornings and uncertain days, for the first time in my life I wasn't afraid of what came next. The fear that usually held me back. It was gone. Because this time, I wasn't walking into the unknown alone. He was there, with me, beside me, steady and real. And that changed everything. This is only the beginning. The first pages of a story that's still unfolding. A story filled with heart, risk, and the kind of love that grows stronger with every chapter. If you've made it this far with me, then I know something in this story has stirred something inside you. A memory, a hope, a longing. There's so much more I want to tell you. Moments you haven't heard yet. Secrets still waiting to be revealed. And I promise, you won't want to miss a single detail as it all unfolds. So if you're here, if you've felt something, don't let this be the end. Tap that follow button. Turn on notifications so you'll know the moment the next chapter drops. And most importantly, leave a comment below. Tell me what you felt, what you thought, what this story means to you. Let's talk. Let's share. Your support isn't just appreciated, it means the world to me. Truly, this is our journey now. And we're just getting started. Thank you for staying with us. If you find it interesting and useful, please subscribe, like and share so you don't miss the next video. Thanks.